Welcome back to another episode of the Groundfloor Market Trends Podcast, your go-to source for insight in today's real estate investing landscape, emerging trends, and how Groundfloor is making it all accessible to everyday investors. I'm your host, Patrick Donoghue, and I'm excited to kick off episode 14 with a special guest who knows this business inside and out. Today, we're joined by Dustin Cole, one of Groundfloor's most active and experienced borrowers. Dustin is a seasoned professional with 20 years of experience in real estate investing and building. He currently serves as the CEO of Southern Specialty Properties. His career has spanned the ups and downs of market cycles, making him a wealth of knowledge for anyone looking to succeed in residential fix and flip projects, new construction, and property management. In this episode, we'll dive into Dustin's background, discuss his approach to identifying promising projects, and hear how he leveraged Groundfloor's platform to drive his business forward. We'll also explore his perspective on what it takes to stay resilient in today's market, especially given the challenges posed by high interest rates, shifting buyer behavior, and construction cost pressures. Whether you're a real estate veteran or just beginning your investment journey, this conversation is packed with valuable insights on finding opportunity and scaling a successful real estate business. You'll hear all of this and more when we come back. Cass, appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
So, Dustin, we are several deals deep with you. You are a consistent borrower with Groundfloor. So today we're going to introduce you to our investors, where this podcast is directed, and frankly, a lot of people are interested in getting into the business, right? So a good place to start, I think, would be to walk us through how you kind of got into the business, what your evolution has been, and maybe the direction that you're heading in. So let's start there.
So I actually started on the banking side. I worked at Wachovia until end of 08, beginning of 09, when everything crashed down. So I saw the back end of the foreclosure side, saw the number of properties that were going to be coming on the market, and kind of went straight from banking to borrowing money started out borrowing money on, obviously back then the prices were much less. I mean, you were picking up properties for $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. So started out borrowing money from dad's friends, families, relatives, and then as we grew the business, started doing more deals. We needed to step up and find some private lenders, and you guys were actually one of our first lenders that we went to a long time ago. I think the first deal we did on y'all's platform was 2013, 14. We were one of the first borrowers on y'all's platform, and then we've kind of steadily built that relationship up over the years.
Well, we appreciate it. So you like to focus currently on new construction. Is that where you started, or did you start doing fix and flips first?
No, so we started with fix and flips. There was just such a huge inventory on the market back then. It was a completely different game, 10, 12 years ago. You could buy a house, put paint, carpet in there, resell it to somebody with an FHA loan. When COVID happened and the foreclosures kind of dried up, we had to kind of shift our model, and we ended up with we bought a rental cabin that had a lot next to it. And so we decided to try our luck at building, and it went really, really well. So we've been up in Gatlinburg building now for almost 5 years. We've built probably about 30 cabins up there so far.
What's interesting to you about the Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg area that, because you're in Atlanta, right? I mean, you're
right. I'm 3 hours from there.
You're up where I am, up in the Swanee Beaufort area.
Yes, sir.
The great state of Swanee and Beaufort, as I like to call it. But you're finding value, to me, it's like if you disagree, no problem. It's a second home type market. It
is. I mean, it's highly Airbnb. Most people don't know it's actually the most visited place in the United States of America.
Is that because of those Great Smokies?
It is, and it's so accessible from so many different states. I mean, if you drive down through a neighborhood, just looking at the different car tags and seeing where everybody's from, I mean, they're literally from all over the eastern side of the United States, from Michigan all the way down to Florida. I mean, people just love the Smoky Mountains. There's so much to do up there, so many activities. So it's just a really, really strong Airbnb market, and the place is it's getting bigger and bigger. They're building more attractions. They're talking about a casino coming up there in the next year or two.
Cool. Yeah.
So it's only going to get bigger.
So how do you develop, the boots on the ground to be able to constantly be looking for deals? I know that the longer you're in business, the more people you meet, the more people you tell what you're doing, the
Sure.
odds are that, you're going to stumble into deals, right? So how,
Sure.
if you're looking back from, when you started to now, what is the process of building, your network so that you're constantly getting the inventory that you need to build and develop?
So a lot of it staying in touch. I mean, in a place like Gatlinburg's been a huge vacation spot for 30, 40 years. So obviously they had the big fires in 2016 that took down a lot of their inventory and opened up a lot of good lots.
Mhm.
But as it's getting so overbuilt now, people are still building. The lots are starting to dry up. So it's really important to have agents, different investors that that don't necessarily have the money to do a deal, and they'll look to just sell it off or sell the contract on it. But it's important to just we try to find everything off market
Mhm.
through agents or just being in a certain neighborhood and calling a couple of the vacant lots. But you got to, I mean, by the time that property hits the market, I mean, in a place like that, there's already 30, 40 investors calling on it the day it hits the market. So you got to look for a different way than just looking on the MLS to find them. So that's kind of what we specialize in, is finding the off-market deals. I mean, if you find a good deal, the money's going to come. You can raise the money, you can borrow the money. I mean, the money will come if you can find the deal.
Well, I think that's an interesting point because looking from the lending side, which is how I look at life, I guess, it's in 2014 was really when the space that as it is now kind of took root, right? That's about when Ground Floor came out, lending home. I've been in hard money since 2004, but there was a distinction point in about 14 when the non-bank private lenders really started to become national, where the money flowed much more sort of fluidly through markets, and it wasn't just sort of hard money lenders. So like, as you were growing your business, as you were moving from fix and flips to new construction, the industry was really growing up, right? Whereas now we find ourselves in an industry that's now securitized, right?
Right,
Where
right.
Wall Street is buying packages of these loans, right? And so you're correct to point out that with a good deal, money's available, right?
Sure.
And so, like, what is it about the ground floor money that attracts you to the platform? Is it the deferred payments? Is it the working with our asset managers? Like, what is it about the platform that keeps you coming back?
So the deferred payments are definitely a plus, especially if you have multiple deals going. I mean, the cash flow savings on those, because by the time, I mean, most of our builds are in the $600,000-700,000 range. So by the time I'm at those last few months, my payments are $6,000-7,000 a month. If you
Wow.
have 4 or 5 of those going at a time, I mean, that can eat into you quick.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I mean, it's super helpful to have the deferred payments, but also hard money back in 2012, 13, 14 was truly hard money. Those lenders were 5 points, 15, 18% interest, and now hard money's kind of come down to be more like banking money. I mean, it's a little bit higher than a bank loan, but with the advantages of it, there's no documentation, there's no tax returns. As long as you have good credit and you bring a good deal and you put a little bit of skin in the game, then places like Ground Floor is who we turn to do those.
And you can also, save some money at closing because we roll the points in and the
Sure.
fees, right? So it is, and you're right. It's pointed, the point of it is to, that cash flow that's so needed during construction, especially with 10, 15 projects going on at the same time. That's a huge nut to carry every month. So
It is.
you don't have to make those payments, right?
Right.
It's just that you can get, honestly, I think you can get through the projects quicker, right? And also, I think, probably within all of that is the ability to keep your GCs moving, right? The ability to keep the hammers and nails swinging on multiple projects so that that you have that support when you have your next deal, right?
Well,
In
that's
other
the whole thing. Because if you're using like a GC and he's floating, money for you till you get your draw, and you have 7, 8, 9 deals going at a time, I mean, those numbers can get up to several $100,000. And if you were unable to make your payment, that would stop your bank draws from coming, which would just basically it would shut you down quick. So the
yeah,
deferred payments are really, and that's uniquely to you guys. I don't know any other lender that does the deferred payments.
and we were actually able to get those securitized. That was the unique thing about the securitization that we did, is that it was all deferred payments, right? And it's the first one of those historically. So good job us. But it's, honestly, it's because borrowers like you recognize the value in the platform and the loan features and loan characteristics. And so that we were able to get our volume and our our market share up to a point where we had enough volume to, support a securitization, but also to, to fund the 80,000 investors that come to our platform, looking for deals, right? And
Right.
it's a really interesting macro economy that works, like the supply and the demand of the capital. You have the demand for the capital and we have the supply. And, our job is to make sure that the features of the loan are, risk adjusted, right? And that it also enables you to keep projects moving. So, it's really interesting to see. I'm looking actually right now, I'm looking at the deal flow you have. This deal in Gatlinburg that we just closed for you. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure.
I was
Absolutely.
very excited about that one and went up and saw it and saw how close it is to city center and what a unique plot of land that was. And tell us about your plans there.
It was. So it's a really, really tight lot. So it used to be the old Gatlinburg Motor City Inn, small little motel that was built in the 40s originally, was added onto a few times, but it took when I put it under contract, I was unsure if I was going to be able to build on it. So we put it under contract. I hired a civil engineer. He went out there several times and he's like, we're down to the inch on what you can do here. Backside of the property goes straight up a hill, but I mean, it is prime location. It's walking distance to the strip in downtown Gatlinburg, which there's really no land left down there like that. So we're gonna construct 12 townhouses there. There'll be 3-story townhouses. Because the lot was so small, we're gonna use drive under parking. So we'll do drive under the park, and they'll be 2 stories up. But we're really, really excited about this property. The margins we're looking on this property are going to be extremely strong. It should be the best deal that we've ever done, and we can do 12 of them in a row, which is nice. And I've never done a deal that wasn't just a single. I mean, I've done some duplexes and stuff, but I've never done anything that was multiple units like this. So I came to you guys unsure if you guys would do the loan or not, and y'all thought outside the box, and we came up with a solution, and when we got it done.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. I especially liked it when I went up and saw it. And that's the diligence is important, but I think that it's hard. I think what I appreciated about the transaction is that it's hard to create value in this market right now, right? The way to do it is through new construction. The way to do it in a place like Gatlinburg is to utilize it's so supply, the land supply is so constrained. You have to maximize every square footage. And I appreciated the work that your architect did, especially in achieving that, right? I mean, you still have to build it, right? We still have to get it up, but I thought that, it penciled out very well. I know that you utilized the same builder, right, on a lot of projects. So, I thought that it was a really great project, and it probably puts you into another sphere now where you can look at other, development type deals too. And it's all part of that, that evolution of,
Right.
And it's, our investors benefit from good transactions. You benefit from being able to go vertical on, 12 at once, really. What do you think from a time standpoint? What do you think that deal will take to, I think you just broke ground on it essentially. So how long do you envision in our environment today that takes to get up?
We should be 7 to 8 months from breaking ground to finishing. So we're hoping to be August, September. These things be on the market. We're hoping to be completely out of there and sold out by the end of the year.
That's awesome. And are you keeping one for yourself? Be
I
honest.
think I'm going to keep the end unit closest to the river. That's the plan.
It's a nice spot.
I say that now, but it's listed for $100,000 more than the other one. So if somebody offers that to me, I might take it too. So
yeah, absolutely. What is it about? Who's the buyer for that model and property in Gatlinburg? What's your profile?
I mean, so on this project, most of these are going to be Airbnbs. Most of these are going to be sold to out-of-state buyers. With that, where that one is now, you might get some of those business owners that have those businesses in downtown Gatlinburg that want to be that close. A lot of those business owners, we've talked to several of them. A lot of those business owners live there part-time and they come in and out, but they do so well. They could afford an extra little house that was real close to where they're at. So, but it should be mostly there. It should be mostly all Airbnbs.
You feel like you might have an edge on your next project with supplying houses for people that actually work in Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge areas. So why don't you talk to me a little bit about that?
So we've got a couple tracks that we have zoned for other townhouse projects that are not quite as close to downtown Gatlinburg, but there's a huge demand there for workforce housing, for locals housing, because everything's been turned into Airbnbs. There's a couple little pockets there that have been excluded that are the city's not allowed the Airbnb rentals to move into, but there's just a huge demand. The starting point for a 1 bedroom, 1 bath Airbnb cabin there is probably in the mid fives for anything that wasn't built in like the 60s or 70s.
Mm-hmm.
So we feel like if we can come in there and build some new properties, put the square footage in there at 1,500, 3 bed, 2 bath, so a family could live in there, and be at the $400,000 price point, we'll be by far the lowest price point in Gatlinburg as far as new construction goes. There's some stuff out 20, 30 minutes outside of town, but if you really want to be right there, I mean, there's no other projects like that.
I mean, being able to solve affordability with, new product is so critical in most, in most geos right now that,
It really is.
it's I mean, it's like a systemic problem, right? So, I think it's amazing that you're thinking through that and have the potential to, solve that for at least 12 to 24 families, right?
Right. So, I mean, the city there originally, so to go through the planning and zoning process there requires 2 meetings, full set of plans, everything. We called the city, told them our plans with this. They're like, hey, get us everything. We want to approve this in one meeting so we can get this done as fast as we possibly can because we need this. We need this. We need this here. So the
Yeah.
city's going to help us on these, which I mean, it's never hurts to have that side of the project on your side.
Well, it's somebody said to me early in life that, the way to be successful is by solving big problems, right? Or solving small problems.
Sure.
And it really is. It's amazing. One of the things that I was thinking when you were talking through that with the planning commission and permitting and things, one of the skills that I admire in, professionals like you is the ability to work with the different both people, procedures, policies, neighbors, right? All these things that you have to do and align as you move into a project. I find to be a very admirable skill. And you're a humble guy, you probably, I see
Sure.
but like it's a skill. And I'd love for you to talk to our listeners about how you approach the planning permitting process and what you generally have to go through and things that you have to watch out for during that time.
So there's really two ways you can go about it. You can be the guy that goes in there demanding that these are inside their rule sets. They have to approve this. Or you can go the guy in there that brings the front lady a coffee that morning when you go see her and try to woo them over. So it's really about just being super nice to these people. I know a lot of people in this industry are not. There's a lot of people that just think they've been doing this forever and what they do is correct. And it's just so much easier. I mean, it's easier to attract the bees with honey, right? So if you can go in there and be super nice to them, lay out a plan, be super respectful to them on the phones. I mean, it truly does go a long, long way.
Yeah, and when you can align your projects with their key initiatives, right? Like
Right.
workforce housing, for instance, it's you doors fling wide open for you, right? And
They do.
yeah, and that's it's good for our ground floor listeners to kind of appreciate the work, and it's not always quick, right? Like
It's
it can.
not. It's not. I mean, there's a lot of problems. I mean, there's a lot of inspections that go into these things, and you're building a lot of this stuff off the side of mountains. I mean, you're literally looking down 100 feet to the bottom of your property. So there's some challenges with it, but we always try to be there to meet the inspectors or have somebody on site when we know it's inspection day. Have a worker there or I'm there, and just kind of talk to them. Be nice to those guys too, because those guys can make your life a lot more difficult than it has to be. So
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah, we do see that from time to time in some of our projects. So, it's just to kind of look out from the macro perspective. We've gone through a couple years of some pretty severe 2.5 years of some pretty severe inflationary pressures, especially on builders. Lumber, for instance, in 22, 23, a lot of the raw materials. So can you talk about how you navigated that landscape and maybe what you're seeing out there today and help us understand sort of some of the challenges that you faced and are
sure.
facing. Mm-hmm.
So a lot of that stuff, I mean, it's completely out of your control. Prices of goods and stuff is just completely out of your control. There's several deals, we went into on there that we thought we'd make 150 grand and we ended up making 90. But we try to structure all of our deals with worst case scenarios. So we, excuse me, we assume, prices can spike, rates can go up. So we try to make sure we have enough room in our deals to where, we can absorb a 10, 12% shock and we still make money on the other end. If a deal's too tight to do, or we go into a deal where, we're going to build a $500,000 house and the upside is making 50 grand, we're not doing that deal. Like, it's just, there's too many variables. There's too much stuff that can go wrong. It's not worth it. The downside risk is just much more than upside potential, because your upside potential is capped at that $50,000. So, and your downside risk is getting stuck with something, or taking too long to build something, or prices going up too high, and it's not worth it. So we try to make sure, we try to shoot for about a 30% margin on our builds is what we're shooting for. We don't always hit it, but we're still making money even when we don't. So.
Yeah, so that's a minimum cushion that you look for to really go after a deal. Yeah.
Right. And some of these deals, I mean, if you can get some of these deals right, like we had the deal we're talking about building affordable housing on, we're going to build 12 units there. Already got approval from the city on that one. But the lady came over next door and she was wondering what we were doing. And she saw we had some surveyors over there. I was meeting some people over there. And she's like, well, hey, I have an acre and a half right next to you I'd like to sell. I've had a guy that's been telling me he's going to buy it forever. He had it under contract, but he never gave me any earnest money. We literally signed a contract sitting right there. I went back to the hotel, printed something up, had it signed right there, and we closed 2 weeks later. And we're going to do 24 houses right there next to the 12 units that we already have approved to do. So
maybe that's my next trip up to Gatlinburg. Who knows? Well, it's interesting. Like when you were talking about, the minimum sort of profit perspective you look at before you really commit to a deal, and you having to, maybe turn down some deals because they didn't meet that hurdle. That's just reflected, I think, everywhere in the activity right now, right? Like these markets are a little bit sluggish, and the more things, it's going to be gradual and it'll take time, but the more pricing settles, and I think the more interest rates come into focus and there's some stability renews into the market, more and more of those deals will come available to you. But I think what I hear from you, the key is to staying in the market, talking to people, being professional how you deal with them. And, sort of as you progress into the market, things like the neighbor with an acre and a half, right? That sort of things happens, right?
I woke up that morning and never thought I was going to buy a piece of property right next to her, and it just worked out perfectly.
And
go ahead.
No, I hear that from the successful, builders on our platform that's it's just being in the market, right? And being there is so critical, and focusing on an area, whether it's 2 hours from your house or not, that's one of the critical keys to developing a geo, that's favorable in terms of, your minimum profitability, what you have to deal with from the permitting and planning, and, getting things vertical, right? It's very interesting.
It is. And I had one of my old mentors tell me, he's passed away now, but he used to tell me sometimes the best deal is to not do a deal. Yeah. So it's okay to sit on your hands for a little bit and wait for the perfect deal to come. If you're out there beating down doors, talking to people, you're in the area, in the community, the deals will come. But you don't need to force a mediocre deal, because if you're forcing a mediocre deal, you're probably going to lose money when it's all said and done.
Yep. And then you're going to upset the lender too, right? So
right.
Do that.
Sure.
Well, that is, those are all the questions I had for you today. It's been amazing, and I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to our listeners about, the business of building and what you're up to. And again, thank you for your use of the platform, and looking forward to doing more deals with you, Dustin. Thanks a lot.
Appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
All right. Take care.